Okay, this concludes the public participation portion of the meeting. The board will now move into the information discussion items. A presentation on the interim and permanent superintendent searches will be made by Tom Leahy. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Okay. Consultant for the Illinois Association of School Boards. Tom, thank you so much for taking time on a Saturday to come present to us. Do you have materials to pass?
I do, and I kind of time that, so I'll get around and
Okay.
pass it to you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and visit with you. Just a couple of reflective, open comments after an hour of time from your good community to talk to you. I will share with you, as you know, I represent the Illinois Association of School Boards, and that association is your association that in fact develops the Board of Conduct, the Code of Conduct for board members. It also establishes the foundational principles. And in those foundational principles, number 3 is that the Board of Education employs a superintendent. And you do that together. We prefer to have community input when we do our searches. And with that being said, I'm going to get right to the 2 items. First being our process to assist you in an interim search. And then I'll do the process of a full search as well. They will tie together a bit. But, and know this, if you have any questions, please, at all during my spiel, please ask, because I may not remember everything you want to know, but I hope to be able to help you here, so know that. I should introduce myself personally first. Joyce and I live an hour west of Springfield. We have 3 grown children with families, and we have 13 grandkids. It range in age from 1 to a senior in high school. We have been married 44 years, and I've been in education 44 years. I was a teacher for 6.5 years, and I was a principal for 14.5, and a superintendent for 14. The past 10 years, I've been working as a consultant and now director of the Illinois Association of School Boards Search Department. We are a not-for-profit agency, and I know that the last time you did the search, Donna Johnson presented to you, and you chose a different firm, which is absolutely your preference. So let me get to the process of the interim piece, and I'll bring these around to you. I feel a little uneasy by my back to you, not because you guys are here, but just because I'm not speaking to you openly. So bear with me here if you would.
See you. Yeah.
So if you would, open the folder that has actually some brief information in it. The first document is what we call an interim superintendent checklist. This is typically what occurs when a Board of Education, for whatever purpose, needs an interim superintendent. It occurs with a severance of a contract, it occurs with a resignation, it has occurred, of course, unfortunately, with the death of a superintendent. And so we've assisted with finding interims throughout the state. We maintain a database of approximately 160 names of people who are typically retired superintendents who would like to be an interim. Those folks, more often than not, have been successful in that field, or they probably wouldn't want to continue. But with that, the interim checklist is to identify possible interim candidates. Next would be schedule interviews with identified candidates, prepare the format, questions and board questions. We help with the interview questions. Select the desired interim, check the references and background, make a verbal offer to the desired candidates, and some of this sheet talks about 2 because sometimes a district will need 2 in a year's time. They're limited to the number of days that, of course, they can work if they're a TRS retiree. But with your situation, you could have one person come, and I've looked at your calendar. It appears that you start back to school on January 8th. You could begin your interim part then or sooner if you wish, but realize the 100 days are important because you want to be able to fulfill the needs of a district in those 100 days for the rest of the year. A per day rate ranges between $550 per day to $950 per day, typically in the state, for an interim. Those similar to Dunlap are around $650 to $850. You do not pay benefits. You would not have health insurance, you wouldn't have TRS retirement. So what you're looking at is somewhere in the range of 100 days times the daily rate. You may have some issue with candidates who live away from you and need some assistance with housing or mileage. But this is typical stuff. You would negotiate with someone, you would then develop a work agreement and a work calendar, and then the interim could start. Now, I'm presenting that to you as the canned model, if you will. The next page is a bit more detailed as far as Dunlap. And we are prepared to enter in an agreement with you to do an interim search that is more than just what I explained a while ago by just providing names to you. What we would like to see happen here, and it's because of the need of this district today. It's the need of this Board of Education to function well together, and it's the need of the community to have trust in you. So with that, if you approve us today, we would have board, staff, community online surveys prepared, and in fact I have a live link with me to share with you today. It would stay open until 11:45 p.m. on the 7th of December. We would then use that information, and in fact when the young lady spoke who is with Madrigals, we could include students at various levels to be able to access that as well. So know that you would go into the SurveyMonkey, you would have the link, you would be able to access a survey that you would indicate your highest level of 10 items that you want to see in someone as an interim superintendent, and then you have an opportunity for open comments. And everyone can type in what they need to say on the open comments. We do have some direction with the open comments that we want folks to be kind and pleasant in their comments. So with that, you would after that identify candidates for interviews. Those can be candidates that we have put together for you, and they can be individuals who you know yourselves. We've already had some input from, and help me with the name of the regional office person.
Beth Derry.
Yes, she shared with me someone, and I have their material with me today. And they were in fact in our database, so we'll talk more about that a bit later. But you would conduct then focus groups of community and staff with the interim candidates. We would facilitate that. And that's part of why there's an additional cost for the interim piece. We have those in our stages of interim searches. And I would come in an evening and with your focus group interview candidates in a stair-step fashion to where if you started with one at say at 6 o'clock, the next one would come at 7 when that first one goes to the board. You would stair-step through. We have a rubric form that people can rate them on potential for success. And I would compile that at the end of the evening and share that then with the board after you're finished with your interviews. So what I've done is taken, as you're going to hear the full search piece, pieces of it and plugged it in to the interim search to make sure that you have involvement from your staff and community and students, if you wish, in this process. So sometime during then, the week of December 11, you could technically do those focus groups interviews. Then the week of the 18th, for 3 or 4 days available, you could conduct second round interviews. By January 5th, which is the Friday I think before the 8th, you could have in place an agreement with an interim superintendent. So that is, and the third sheet, by the way, is a printed sheet of what the survey would look like online. It's different than this, but these are the items here. So, questions you have? Any questions? Please.
Do you have the list of internal candidates as well?
I have not received that. Those were, I think, to go to Mrs. Disharoon, and I don't have them. I have ones we have. I don't have them, but I would like to have them as well when the time comes.
Okay, I'd like you to have them as well. And
Yeah.
then I guess one concern that I have, just going forward, just to make sure there's communication to all members of the Board of Education. You know, as a board, I think that, you know, maybe sometimes it's timing. I'm not
Sure.
saying that it's always deliberate, but I want to make sure that we're all up to speed in a timely manner. Any
Okay.
communication, I just want to make sure that we get as a full board.
Well, and we would, without problem, do that, as long as you don't reply all. You understand the Open Meetings Act technical stuff. So I can provide information to you directly, though, as a full group of 7, if that's what this board body wants.
Yeah,
And
nobody
I'm
objects
seeing
to
that
that.
everybody seems to be good. Sure, you bet.
Absolutely, thank you.
Other thoughts?
Any other questions?
Now, one thing I need to, of course, share with you is the cost of the interim piece. The interim piece would be a cost of $2,000, along with the evening of the focus group interviews with candidates and us facilitating that of additional $1,500. What you have in place then is a cost of $3,500 for the interim search. If you approve that, and then you approve the full search, we will deduct 20% from the full search base cost. So it just about covers back to the 2,000. It doesn't quite do the whole 35, but it does help by doing both of those. And we see that as an advantage to give a hand to try to make this work for you. So yes?
I was just curious, the cost for you to provide internal candidates, since we're providing that, is there any discount for the fact that we're going to give you that information?
No, because the interim search is open. We don't close the confidential door like we would in a full search of all candidates. You could today say, we know someone that we want to consider in the outside of this room, meaning someone else, and the matter's not. So no, we just do the thing that we do is provide the list, and I have 4 or 5 with me that, by the way, need to go to closed session with you of them because they're confidential. They are applicants now, and they have all told me they're interested in doing an interim here at Dunlap. So no, there's no variance. Long answer to a short question.
All you can do is ask, right?
I'm sure. Good question.
I just have a question, along with what Cheryl was asking about the cost and difference. You know, because what is your normal time frame for an interim search? Like, what, for the services that you're providing, what would the normal time be that you would work with that board to find an interim?
There is, the normal time frame is for a board to ask for names from us. We come in and give them to them. We actually even just sometimes send them to them and don't come even here. We don't have any daytime work or any other. We just have a list of people, and there's no cost to that. See, we could provide names to you and not additional service of community involvement or online survey. Those are the additional costs of that part of it. So this part of it, we would set up the interviews for you, be there with you. That's the difference. Okay?
And how much time would you normally have to do that? I'm just concerned.
It depends on the situation.
Okay.
It means that sometimes I've had an interim in place within a week because someone passed and they need it now, and they know that, so they move forward. And sometimes they'll find somebody themselves in their community who's a retired person who could be a superintendent. There's even someone probably maybe at this table someplace that might have had superintendent experience. Am I right about? Oh, I thought so. Well, at least worked at schools. Okay. Sorry to put you on the spot with that. You guys react quick. Did that answer your question?
I think so. I guess I'm just concerned. I know we're trying to, obviously this is not something that most of us anticipated doing.
Right.
And I just want to know, on average, if this had been something that had been
Within a
forecasted,
2 week to a month.
and that's normal?
Mm-hmm. It is, because I've talked to the candidates who are interested in being candidates without doing an application process, not doing the brochure, not doing an online application. We already have their personal information form and their resumes in hand. And that's there, and it moves quickly because sometimes it needs to. I've not seen an interim search, if you will, if you call it that, an interim naming going beyond 6 weeks, for sure. So, and because of timing, you need to, in our view, do that as well. Okay. Other questions?
Any other questions? Okay.
Not on the interim.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I
Would you
did mention to you that I have with me files of individuals who are interested in being an interim for you, and I would need to present those to you enclosed, since they are candidates. Okay?
Right. Okay, you want to speak now about the permanent
I do.
superintendent search?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure do. Notice that folder just handed you, although it does say interim on it. Keep those folders separate from.
Thank you.
What I would like you to look at first is on the left side of that folder, and you'll see some brochures. One is a larger brochure, which is of our search service. And in the back, you can see the individuals who assist with that work. We have, I think, 5 consultants throughout the state, and Mary Torgler, our administrative assistant, who is in the Lombard office. I typically work from the Springfield office, but since I'm director of the entire department, I'm all over the place. So, for example, last evening, I was at a district near Springfield, came here last evening and stayed somewhere close, and I'm able to get up and do some work in the room today and then come here. But with that being said, that is our brochure. It's also important for you to know that there's another brochure on that side, and that is the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers. We call it NAS. We have 40 state associations like IASB that have search departments. And we cooperate with each other throughout the country to converse about proper processes, challenges we have. We meet twice a year. We will meet in the summertime next summer in Minnesota, where our chair will be. We met in Oklahoma City last summer. I've been past chair. We met in Chicago. We also meet at the National Association of School Boards Conference coming up in San Antonio in February. We meet then. That's when we have our business meeting. It's really a network. And know that if you post with us and do a full search posting, that will circulate to them and be posted on what's called the hub, which is throughout the states that are members. So I think it's important for you to know that we truly have made efforts to be a national presence, full well knowing that candidates who come to Illinois from out of state will have 15-20% of those in any pool. We have to be very careful to make sure that they are certified, licensed, and have the wherewithal to take care of finance. It's a rascal here. So with that being said, we're careful about the out-of-state piece. On the right side, you'll notice a 2-page proposal letter, and know that I'm going to set aside for a second and go to the second sheet. The second sheet is the summary of the proposal. Due to your average daily attendance, which is over 4,000, you have 43 or 400 students enrolled, but your ADA is somewhere in that 4,100 range. A full search cost for that range, and we base it on size, is $8,900. It will provide myself to be your search consultant. We'll designate, I'm the coordinator. We assist you with a timeline, and I'm going to go to that after I speak to these pieces on this sheet first. And that's the next page. We also provide the board staff community online survey similar to what's could occur in the interim piece. It has on it a few more items that you'd be looking for in a permanent superintendent. It also would have ideal candidate profile. That comes from the document on the online survey that your staff, board, and community, students as well, if you wish, we compile the results of that and come back to you and present that information to you. You would then list them in an announcement of vacancy which is a brochure. And I'm going to give to you have, as an example, past brochures we have in the state that we've done. What I would like to do now, so I can speak to these districts, they're somewhat similar in size or larger or smaller. But I would like to ask of you, Mrs. Humbles, if you would tell me which one you have?
I have District 150.
Right, Peoria 150, we did a search for them a couple of years ago. They still have their superintendent currently in place.
She's a good one.
I understand that. Dr. Bozeman, which one?
And it's just Mrs. Bozeman.
I'm sorry.
It's this same period, 150.
Oh, it is, okay. Which one, sir?
Galesburg.
Galesburg. We just completed the Galesburg search this past year. They have a new superintendent in John Asplund right now who just started this past fall. Okay? DeKalb. We just completed that search this past year. Al Mulby, a different consultant, did that one, and they're in the process with someone new currently.
Canton.
Canton. A couple of years ago, I conducted a search in Canton in a similar fashion for different reasons than Dunlap, but their superintendent, in fact, took a position mid-year in Quincy, and he's Roy Webb. He's still there in Quincy, and then we helped them with an interim, very similar in timing, Mrs. Bozeman, to what we're talking about here. Timing, because that person started, I think I was engaged by them in October, November, maybe, a little earlier, but found an interim candidates first, and then that person began second semester in Canton. Went through the year, and in the meantime, did a full search, and then it resulted in who's there now, okay? Other district? Morton. Yeah, just did the search in Morton last school year, and they have a new superintendent, I think Jeff Hill, currently. Champaign, yep. We did it last year. There were several of us involved in that one due to the size and being in the focus groups and interviews of staff and community in the beginning as well. Okay. So what you see is the type of document that we will develop a draft of based on information from the board, staff, and community of the online survey and the comments. We ask of your district staff to assist with the development of like the financial information that's on there, the demographics, programs, because this is your advertisement. This is your story. This is what you put out there for people to look to apply at Dunlap. It will be distributed through a process called Real Magnet. It's similar to Constant Contact, and we believe we distribute 7,000+ of those to people in the country, mostly Illinois. You might wonder, how does that occur with so many? Well, we cooperate with the Illinois Principals Association, the IASA Superintendents Group, the school business officials, and sitting superintendents receive them. So they allow us to use their database to distribute all of the brochures to them. So we would do that as well. We review applications. We would provide and recommend a selection of 4 to 6 candidates for interview. We will do a basic background inquiry, and we'll assist you with developing some other background checking if you wish. We verify the references, limited background inquiries, also the interview format, and prepare for a site visit as appropriate. Meaning, when you zero in finally on after your interview process and you're down to one person and you believe you want them to be your superintendent, we recommend that you go to a location and visit where they're currently living and working to have a day's time with people there to talk to them. When applicants apply through us, they sign off on the fact that we and or you can talk to all their references they've listed or anyone else you want. And that's what I do. I talk to people they don't know I'm talking to. It might be 2-3 jobs back, it might be colleagues. With my involvement in IASA Superintendents Organization over the years, I have a lot of folks that I'm still in contact with, attend the state meetings, we do presentations, so we have connections in that. So that's really all of what includes in a basic search, and you can do that. You can do that without some of the options. But we suggest options here to help with the situation that's occurring as far as you involving your staff and community. And notice that the additional recommendations, and they have additional costs, would be staff or community and district interviews. That means that I would come into your district and have meetings with staff members and community members through a full day. I've done them as early as 7 a.m. and ended as late as 10 in the same day. Whatever it takes to do that. We schedule times in buildings. We have meetings with staff and during the day usually. It's a better time to do it if you have a day that they're not with students. Because we don't want it, first of all, we don't want it to get in the way of educating your kids. But timing is something that would need to be figured out there as far as your scheduling and that kind of thing. So we could talk about that. We don't recommend additional advertising through Education Week and AASA. There is additional cost to it. But as technology is today, when we put this out on our IASA job bank and also the IASB website, it will travel throughout the country or farther. We've had applicants from Germany in the past. I had one from Japan. They were normally American people living in those countries who were looking for something to come back to in the U.S.
Excuse me, can I ask a
Please.
quick question? Going back to the first additional service item, interviewing staff in our community, in district interviews. So this would be on top of doing the Survey Monkey.
Yes.
Because the Survey Monkey is for interim or, it's or for a permanent superintendent, what qualities they're looking for.
Right.
So that's done, and it
Well,
applies to both. but-
and the Survey Monkey would occur twice. You would do the Survey Monkey for the interim piece quickly. The other one would begin after that one's done and go longer. Okay, then the in-district interviews ask different questions than the Survey Monkey does. Survey Monkey asks them to tell us their top 5 of some items and open comments. I hope this answers your question, but what it means is then I visit with a group and have them tell us what is unique about Dunlap, what is really important and special, what are they mostly proud of, what concerns or weaknesses might there be, and then what are the characteristics they're looking for in a new superintendent. We ask that with a group without board members or administrators present. We want it to be full-flowing, freely flowing, without question. It appears to me that you don't have any problem with their having free-flowing comments, and that's okay. But we want everybody to feel comfortable here.
Absolutely. So,
Does that-
yeah, so there's 3 touch points with stakeholders.
There would be, we'd have 2 online surveys for separate deals. We would have the in-district work, and then there's another one at the end. And let me get to that piece. We also recommend to you that you have us do what we call structured interviews of a narrowed pool. So if we have 30 to 40 applicants apply in the full search, we will narrow that to a group of 12 or so. And then 2 of us will do structured full-day interview either in the Springfield office or Lombard office or combination for an additional cost of 2 consultants for full day, which is $3,000. Go back to the in-district is $1,500, but we were talking about a while ago. So we would do that in order to narrow it then to a group of 6. That doesn't mean we haven't talked to candidates. We do that all the time. But we feel it's important for some candidates to be with us for a 30-minute session, and we ask the same questions of all of them, and we meet them absolutely face-to-face in an interview process, and we can get a better feel for their success rate. Then we also recommend that you have what we call it a mock interview, but we're changing that name to a practice interview. We have another person of our colleagues, our staff, who would come in if you wish, and he'll research the district as a practice candidate. I've done it several times, different places. If others cannot do it, I will here, but it's better if you haven't met the person yet. And you do an hour interview of them in a practice session. We will help you develop the questions for that. You do the actual interview as a board. It's different interviewing candidates as a group of 7 than it is one person, and we're sensitive to that. So that would be an additional cost of $15 as well. And then back to, is it last name spelling? Bluth?
Oh, Bluth.
Bluth, yeah, Mrs. Bluth. If you look at the other option at the end, what we suggest here, and we've seen much success in this one even if you don't do the others. After the board has interviewed, let's say, the first 6 candidates and you've narrowed it to 3, we'd do something very similar and a little more structured than what we would do with the interim one with the interviews by staff and community group stair-stepped with the candidates to go through that. That's that piece. And that's where that came from to be in the interim search. So those two services are the same, but they happen twice because you have two things going on here.
So
Okay.
then, what you're doing in a service to provide recommended questions that we would use with the candidates, that's part of
We do.
what you provide?
Yes, we do.
So
And we would
then-
provide that in a basic search without the additional pieces.
Right, yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
I saw that. So then to, I guess the question is, how important is it to do a practice interview session? Because I think some people may already have experience on the board interviewing.
That is exactly the question, because if you do have experience and don't feel like you need it, don't use that one. We would deduct that from
Okay.
this. So that's absolutely proper. Any and all of these that you either want or don't want, we'll adjust at your preference. I mean, I might have some comments and suggestions about that, but that's one that if you have experience yourselves, which is highly probable here and from what you're saying, we'll still help you with the list of questions and some guides on how to do the interviewing, but not actually have the practice piece.
Thank you.
Now, you'll notice that the summary at the bottom, and this total cost of both the basic search would be with the basic and all these additional pieces. And what I wanted to say is that that also includes a 20% reduction in the base cost if you choose to do both of these. The cost of the full search is $14,620. Okay? So to do the full, both of them, you'd add them together. I haven't done that, so I don't know what that is, but it's 18 maybe or so total. Now, one part I do want to share with you that I think is important for you to know. In either of these processes, we will stay with you throughout the entire piece, even if it has to reopen and do again. Even if it didn't work in the spring and you went for another interim for next year and you opened it again in the summer and went on to 19, we do that at no additional cost. It's our quasi-guarantee to make sure that we stay with you throughout this entire process. And finally, you have a half-day workshop provided with no cost with Aretha Owen, who you know, to do a team-building workshop with the board and the new superintendent. Okay. Now, other questions?
I just have a couple questions.
Please.
One, you mentioned that you'd have a good range of candidates that you would review, and then you yourself and maybe another person would review those, and you'd bring to us, was it 6 to 8 or something?
Yes. Right.
Okay.
6 is typical.
Okay, I know in the last search, we were concerned about not having access to all candidates. Would you be willing to give the board information regarding all candidates that apply?
No,
So you would not allow us to see the ones that were not selected?
that is correct. And there's a reason for that. Candidates who apply through us initially tell us that if it's going to be known to a board ahead of time, they will not apply.
Can you take away any naming information and so that we can see what the experiences are without seeing who the individual is?
I would have to think about that, because if we do in fact, you will see a summary of how many candidates applied, what states they're from, what their education level is, and their current positions. You'll see all of that by numbers. So if we had 40, you'll see a summary of those 40. You would not see who they are or where they're from. Does that help you?
It does. I just, in the last search, we wanted that information because there was some concerns about transparency, quite honestly, at that time. And so we wanted to ensure that there weren't being people that were being left behind. Obviously, that was a different firm, and I was one of the ones who was very, vocal in wanting IASB because I felt that you do an excellent job and that you are very unbiased. But I still do think that because of the cloud of distrust that is above us, I do think that it may warrant a discussion of the board as to whether we want access to all candidates to make sure that the process is transparent. And I'm not saying we'd have to know the official names, but to know that we're making a selection based on the right criteria and experiences.
If we were to do that, I would want to know specifically from you the types of information that you wanted.
Okay.
And I will work with you on that, but I can tell you that I will not give you the names of all of those people who did apply. And I'll be very careful if it identifies who they are, because they tell us, often candidates will say, I'm employed by a board now and it's like a marriage, and I have 7 members that I'm working with and I have a 3-year contract and I want to stay there if I don't get this job. We've seen it so that whenever they've applied and even not gotten it at the end, it has caused harm at home. And that's what they're cautious about. And we're wanting to be helpful there. With that being said, we work fully for the Board of Education, not candidates. We don't have any stake in stuff from them. No kickback, no stake, no anything. So we're with you on that, but we're careful about that.
Okay, thank you.
I have
Please.
a question. Kind of goes with what Mrs. Bozeman was saying. If there is a candidate on those lists that without the names, but perhaps someone that, say, intrigues one of the members, would it be possible for you to ask that person if they would possibly be interested in letting us look at the resume? Say she saw something on that list that she thinks, wow, this person, has these credentials. At that point, would you allow her to, or, any one of us to say, okay, can we at least find out who that person is and interview that person? Or is it strictly just the 6 that you selected?
Well, let me tell you of some other information that we've done before, which isn't exactly like that, but close. If you as a board know of individuals in the area or others who are qualified as superintendent and you would like to see them in the mix, we would invite them to apply. That's all. But I know what you're asking. But then if you also have someone you don't want to see in the mix, we won't include them. But what you're saying is if we can provide then, let's clarify that a little bit, and perhaps Mrs. Bozeman, it helps with what your question was. And I'm thinking through this on the fly a little bit, a sense of what would you need. If you have their current role, some history of their work, what they've done in education, maybe the size of system that they're in, how long they've been there, yes, then we'll go back to what you said.
I wasn't referring to the interim, I'm referring to.
No, I know,
the
full-time.
main search.
Yes.
Yeah,
I am too, as far as you identifying people from outside. I mean, you can tell us.
Okay.
And if we provide you the proper data of a candidate, and I would do them all the same, I'm going to probably check this with our legal a little bit, because I'll make sure and we have 3 attorneys on staff that will try to guide me in the right direction here. So does that help with what you?
Yes, thank you. Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
okay.
And I understand the concern, for confidentiality, and I think we all do, because you do kind of walk a tightrope when, you are interested in maybe moving to another position, but you certainly want to keep the one that you have, should
Right.
that not work out. I think probably you could redact enough of the information that it wouldn't indicate who they are or where they're from, to the best of your ability. But if it becomes an issue where that's just not possible, I for one understand.
Well, I think that it could be possible if we did it on a separate form than any information they provide us. So for example, when they apply through an online application process, which they do on AppleTrack, you may be familiar with that, it's probably something Dunlap uses. It's similar, it's the same as that. We would make sure that it didn't have any indication of who they were or where they are. So I think I could probably come up with, we'd have to work together on what that meant. And I will do my best to make that occur without identification there. Now, I will share with you that we've had another district, I did about 3 years, longer than that, 4 or 5 years ago, I did Macomb School District's search for them, with them. They had 2 board members along with me on a screening initial committee. Once we did our work, we came in with 2 board members, because it's not a majority of a quorum, identified by the board who they would be. They signed a confidentiality agreement with us. And then they helped screen the last 6 from about 20 or half of them. That is a possible. It is extra time, and it's up to you guys as a whole.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other
thoughts?
Yeah, questions? Do we want to discuss as a group kind of our sense of the mock interview training? Cheryl, did you say you did not think? that was necessary?
You know, there's an overall cost, and then you can, you know, try to nickel and dime a little bit to bring it down.
Which you already did a while ago. On that.
You know, and the difference in cost, I think anytime we can save some money without impacting the quality of the interviewing, I think that with your guidance, with questions that
Yes.
you liked typically use, that maybe we haven't had experience, but we have 2 board members that actually did go through that process as well, probably, you know, can share with us and we could save some money.
Is anybody in disagreement about that? Just,
I agree with Cheryl.
okay, we all agree? Okay, so we would like to
Okay,
not.
and
do
in
the-
my view, that typically is the first one of the options to go.
Okay.
It really is, because of just what you said. So and I have, by the way, fresh service agreements here that have been signed by Ben Schwarm, our deputy director. And what I'm going to do is to make adjustment
Okay.
to that piece. So what I'm asking of a clarification, we would cross off the mock interview, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
And reduce it from the full amount.
Be 1,120, or 13,120.
13,120.
13,120.
Okay. So I'm crossing it off and initialing that. So that's known that we made that change. And then Karen will ask you to initial it too if you guys do in fact go there, okay?
Okay. Any other questions? Anything else? I think,
Let's go through the timeline maybe a little bit.
okay.
That's
Do you want
right,
to go to the
good.
timeline?
Mhm. Yeah, just a minute.
Everybody's good with all the other items on there, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The one question I have though, is, you know, I'm sure in your experience, your many years of experience, you've worked with divided boards before.
Correct.
And I guess that's a major concern of mine going forward. And I know this comes with some guidance from Retha, who does an excellent job, who we've had her come in and do some governance with this board
Right.
prior. What's your expectation? And I want to make sure that's very clear with the board. I mean, we've had some people speak very well from the community. I spoke about it at the last meeting, that this board should not continue at this 4-3. And I'd asked before if board members were willing to require a supermajority for important, significant decisions such as this. And that didn't get a favorable response from enough members, 4 members, to go forward with that. Is that something that you've helped other boards with in the past?
Well, let me speak to that this way first. This is a little bit different, but it's connected. One of the first questions and most important from candidates is, does this board function well? And that is. I mean, they do, and we tell them, and when we know so far, all I know so far is what I've read and seen on streams since Tuesday, or whenever it was. And I've seen that. Probably see some more of this. They're gone, aren't they? The news now. The news gone?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet.
Okay. I'm going out that door. No, just kidding. And what I'm getting at here is that so far other than the testimonies by your community and staff, I've seen cooperative work going on, and we foster that and try our best to make that occur. I've had boards approve us on a 4-3 vote before due to various factors. We will work with whatever that is because that's the democratic body. But we want to help you get together as 7 badly. And that will help Retha's work too. And I know she and I have had a couple of good discussions since she's been with you. So whether you vote 7-0 on us, if you vote 4-3, we're going to help you and include all 7. But I'm going to work really hard to help you guys put things together and work together. Now, the other piece I'll tell you, if I detect that you're dysfunctional, I tell candidates the truth because they have to know what they're getting into.
Thank you for that. And I guess my concern was not so much the vote for IASB to assist.
Okay.
it was for going forward. And in the work
Right.
that you do with the board in that selection process, that's where the concern is.
Yes.
Because my concern is that if you bring somebody in
Yes.
on a divided vote, then that.
They
is not
will
good.
prefer a 7-0, and we do as well. It does not always occur. I only speak for myself. I've been in 3 districts as superintendent. I've had 2 times when a board voted 6-1 in favor of my contract, but it was not about employment. My point is didn't feel, I concentrated on the one thinking, what's wrong here now? So someone starting wants full support of a group of 7. That's true. Does that help you with that?
Yes, it
Yeah,
does.
yeah, they'll look at that, especially with what's been occurring, not only this time, but last time. Same, I was around that then too and watched as well, okay? Okay, other questions? Any other questions? Okay.
You're going to go over the timeline?
Yes. I have 2 copies of this contract, and I just recall that I need to write these numbers in on both of these for you guys. Hold on one sec. Thanks for reminding me to do that.
No problem.
Appreciate that. Go to this sheet. And this sheet is the lined pages with many dates on it. And know this, that both of these timelines would be your preference or not. It's your searches, and you can choose to do it in a different fashion, longer, shorter, whatever. And know that I've even had some second thoughts about the full-time one a little bit as far as timing, due to the crunch that I've put in here for in-district interviews of staff and community, and doing it 2 weeks from now for this search, which probably would be possibly too quick. I will tell you this, I don't work full-time, but with my lovely wife and 13 grandkids, I've already been informed about 2 weeks period that's going to happen at holiday time that I'm not going to be in this. Follow somewhat. It won't mean I'll slight you guys, it just means that I have Christmas coming up and New Year's coming up and family traveling from all over the place. So notice that if you do in fact approve us on today, I've presented an overview of the process, that's first. And then if you have official board action, we would go ahead, and this is the full-time search, we would post this opening to the IASB website and the IASA Job Bank website Monday. It would go up with items on it to be determined. There won't be any information on it about ideal candidate, there won't be salary, there would be a start date of July 1 of 18, but there will not be stuff on residence, there won't be any details. And that doesn't occur until you finalize this brochure and the document and the preferences from your online survey. So what I would then do between December 4th and 18th, and that's if this timeline is what works, it could be longer, gather information for the announcement of vacancy. We send out to your staff the general information of the district. It's a Word document that people would fill out their areas of expertise, whether it be curriculum, transportation, food service, special programs, cultural things in the community, your community details, finance information, board members' names, and how long you've been on the board, a lot of different things, just what's in here.
And is that to all staff or
No.
an administrator?
That's it, someone that you designate to be the contact. They could then, and I'm looking at the left side of the table here, the young lady could have a new role. It means someone needs to just be the person that I contact, and then they send it out to who you have.
Right.
Other staff, usually administrative staff or department chairs, that kind of thing. It's not difficult to fill out, and once you get it back to us, we develop a draft of this document. It has to fit on 8 columns. You'll notice if you pull this thing wide open, there's 4 columns on each sheet, so we make sure that it tailors down to the 8 columns. If it worked out during the week of December 11, whether it be the 11th or 13th, to actually come in and do in-district interviews of your staff and community, that's a possibility. if it's too quick because of the other work going on with the interim search, that could be delayed. And I would talk to you about scheduled days for staff and what those look like. I don't know if you have any school improvement days, any in-service days coming. If you do, those are the times to try to do it, because then, and by the way, some districts, when they come back the first day after the holiday time, may have a day, like on the 8th of January. I don't know. And that could work. Do you have any in-service days?
Wednesday.
Next week?
Oh, now,
Okay.
I thought somebody indicated maybe December 16th? Oh, 6th, okay.
I'm in a district in Southern Illinois on December 6th. I can tell you that. But that doesn't mean that another staff person couldn't. Let me think about, that's possible if another staff person of ours could come and facilitate, and they're capable without question. The only thing about it is I'm the lead person, and it's helpful for me to be in that role because I would hear personally from people and know what they're thinking, or possibly. I think we can figure that out, of course. Then sometime after that, and I have the week of the 18th, you meet to approve the announcement of vacancy. Of course, that can't occur until after the other work. So what's happening here is this. You do an online survey. We gather that information in-house and compile it. I will tell you that we are careful in the open comments to make sure that we have redacted names of people recommended, any issues, any names of individuals they either want to see or don't want to see for confidentiality reasons. So we help with that. Once the announcement of vacancy is complete, it will then indicate when the deadline to apply is. And you'll notice here that if these timings go forward like they could, I've suggested that January 25th as the closing date for that opening. It would be at 12 noon on that day. We always do them at 12 noon Central Time because we have staff on hand before it and right after if there's tech glitches, which sometimes can occur. We would then review the applications. We would have our structured interviews of them. And then on sometime in February, middle, late, we would provide, we're not providing the practice interview, we take that off, but we will come and do the recommended candidates to your board that you interview and help you with the interviews. You'd have your initial interviews in February or March, do a second round in March and have focus groups involved in that at that time. And then you do a site visit. And you notice that by the end of March, we believe you could negotiate offer contract and appoint a new person. By the end of March, could be the beginning of March or middle because it's still by the end. Now, if we delay some of these activities a week or two or even 3, that will have to extend some. But that's okay. That stuff goes then in the brochure because you have projected timeline that candidates will see. So example, Muhammad Seymour, their application deadline was the 12th of September. The candidates were presented in September, they interviewed in October, and they appointed someone by November. And know that's just because it moved along very quickly, and they were earlier. So does that help with the timeline? That's pretty clear.
Yeah, so quick question, Tom. So
Yes, sir.
when the interviews, do you help us put together interview committees with teachers, stakeholders, and others in the community?
Only the piece of the focus groups in the final round.
Okay.
We don't do multiple meetings with groups of people to have interviews of candidates because that's not confidential. A little bit back to what you asked about, do you give all the candidates to you? We ask boards, once the candidates are identified by us and you've had what we were talking, if you pull people out and want to see them, whenever we finally put together the group, those people interview with this board in closed session in private. You select down to 3 or so, then it opens to your community. That's how we operate.
And it's the same for the interim?
There's a mini piece in the interim.
Yeah.
Yes, yep, very similar. Right.
I was wondering if you have extra copies of these or if they're available online, so.
You could go
can access
to
it?
you can go to the iasb.com website, click on Executive Searches tab. It will show you what place to go to the current vacancies. Then you can click on a PDF of that and print that. We have multiple copies, but we use them for this, and you can keep these. Please keep these. So you can find current ones now that are online now.
And they're in this format?
They are. And know that when we send this real magnet distribution out, this document is a PDF. That's what I'm telling you to go find
Right.
by going to that website.
Can you tell us what is the time frame for when most superintendents are hired for the July 1 start date?
Sure.
Kind of a range of the percentage of when the
Right.
actual...
The best way I have to tell you are the waves that occur in vacancies. We've had districts begin even this year as early as June, and they've hired someone already. The next wave is now. There are places that are going to receive candidates next week. They will be hiring someone probably within about 3 to 4 weeks, even in January possibly. So we're in what we call the second wave now. Third wave would occur after February through March or so, and the fourth is the challenging time. Is what you don't want to be is down in April or May trying to do this. We've had that occur in the past due to someone exiting late, and it didn't. I've had this recently not work, and we come back in and reopen, find them interims for the year. Does that help with
Yes.
it? Okay.
Yep.
So what happens is it's really a domino effect?
Yes, it
Because
is.
it creates new vacancies when the superintendents go in the first wave.
That is correct.
New place, and then those open.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions, or do you have anything else to add?
Only thing I have to add, I thought I had it, but maybe not. No. I don't find what I'm looking for.
The next item is going to be our action item. Does anybody have any questions about the actual contract or want to look at that on the board?
I just want
Okay.
to clarify, it was 20% discount if you do both searches together. So that would be less the price that's listed on this contract.
I think it was included.
No.
I
He-
factored it in.
You've already factored
He
it in.
factored it
I
in.
took
But we're
20%
taking-
off of 8,900. It
And
comes
then we're
off of the
taking-
base.
We're taking off the 1,500.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So in this, like you said a while ago, I think it's 13,120 for the full search. And then, and I even put those figures on here, and we can initial those if you do approve us, so.
Okay. Okay, so I guess this concludes the information discussion items of the meeting, and so now we'll move on to action items. Did you have another question, Dawn?
I do.
Before-
I just
okay.
have two things.
Okay.
One, I know we spoke about the candidates, and we'll have a discussion on that, on whether there's an opportunity to learn who the other candidates could have been, and not who they are, but their experiences.
Yes.
So we're going into it with full transparency. The other thing is that the other question, to Abby Humble's point, if there's someone out there that you feel is a qualified candidate that board members want to bring to you,
Yes.
right? You said that you would look at those candidates, correct?
We would invite them to apply.
Right.
And if they do so, they could be considered at the board request
Right.
and perhaps seriously considered. So-
Okay,
And the
okay.
opposite is correct as well.
Including internal candidates?
Yeah, that
Sure.
includes, internal
Yeah.
or anyone. But I guess my question is too then, as a board, I hope we can agree to be transparent then if we're submitting individuals that we're sharing that, so board members are not thinking that you and your team brought this person forward, but that it was identified.
It will be known to all of the 7 how this comes together.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I had, while we're still in open session, maybe you can address, should we have any concerns that the interim position was just posted yesterday, and there's 5 days for candidates to apply. So the internal candidates, may not have applied yet, and they certainly have time to do so for 5 days.
Correct.
We're going to be talking about candidates today, but we're not considering them. And I'm just wondering, is that a normal process? Because it seems to me you kind of need to look at the group as a whole. And some of us have, very strong preference for finding someone internally.
Okay. So what we can do is develop a plan to make sure that you do get all applicants at one time. What I have with me, I can leave with you, or I wouldn't have to leave them with you. The challenge with that is timing. you see. And I can in fact even hold them. I have paper copies, but I have them electronically on my computer, and I can even send those to you when it closes internally. Whatever this board as a whole agrees to do in that fashion, it's your call.
I just worry that if we look at some and then step away from the table, and then there's some, discussion,
Here's
this person's the better one,
how.
not this one.
Yeah,
Let's
that's your
support
call,
that
and
one.
I can see that's a valid point in the sense that you want to have all of them at once instead of a group now and then another group maybe next week. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and I
And know that-
understand you're here, so that,
Sure.
I mean, there's that reason to move forward because you're here, and can facilitate the conversation. But I am concerned about not looking,
Right.
the fair shake for everybody.
Right. And know that when I can be here again, that's not a challenge. I mean, it just takes our time to do that, and we offer that. If we need a meeting again at one point in time, or if I submit stuff to you electronically and then we're on the phone together, I could be on the phone with you and review candidates in the past. I've done that.
Well, it'd be interesting to get you guys' feedback. My
Yeah.
concern is that we have the dialogue at the board table. So that, and we can agree to disagree, or, we can say the pros and cons, but not having conversations one-on-one, telephone call to telephone call. I think that's caused some of the concern among the board, and so we talk about transparency to the stakeholders, but also transparency with us is important.
Okay, so, and that's a related issue or challenge to what we're talking about.
Right.
And I agree with you in a sense that if we can develop some sort of plan that ties back to what you said about all 7 hearing the same thing from here, we can absolutely do that.
And from here.
From here, these 7 right
Yes.
here. That's what I'm talking
Among
about.
each other, as well as, of course, we want to be informed with you
Well,
as well.
as long as you follow the Open Meetings Act properly and not communicate technically, you know how to follow that. I mean, you understand what I'm talking about here.
Right.
Well, we're going to help with that if you'll let us do that. And so with that being said, I would just need direction on how to communicate with this board. It typically works through the board president to us as far as the details logistically, but once we get to a place of the full search and candidates and all of that, it needs to be all of you. So for example, a minor example maybe, but it's one, not about the internal candidates for interim or interim piece. When we get to a place where we have candidates applying, and I expect if you approve us and we post it Monday, by Monday afternoon we'll have some people take a look at it and they access that application. I can along the way keep the full group of 7 updated on not who's in it personally, names, but how many there are, how many from which states, and their roles currently. Every week or so. Don't we do that? That's a little bit of an example to help you.
And would it be, would the board agree that a good way for him to do that would be by email? Is that acceptable to everybody?
That's what I would do.
Email to everyone.
Email to
all of you.
everyone? Okay.
As long as you don't reply all, which we talked about.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, and so for today, do you recommend that we not discuss the applicants that you have in the closed session and just wait?
I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying that as a full group of 7, you might want to decide if that's what you have done or not, and you can
Okay.
have discussion now perhaps on that issue.
Okay.
I agree with Cheryl, the way.
Okay. Is anybody in disagreement about waiting until we have all the applicants?
I think everybody should have the equal opportunity to apply.
Okay.
And be considered.
And are you comfortable, Tom, coming to present that to us, or would we have a conference call with you where we all meet and you would be on conference call, or how would we?
Well, that for me is handier, but it may not be the best place either.
Okay.
We'd need to talk about when can that occur, because you're going to close the internal piece on, what is it, the 7th or 6th? It was 5 days.
Karen Beverlin, do you know when the internal posting closes? It was 5 days. Tuesday, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. It is 5 days, and I thought it was the 5th or 6th. I'm in a different district on the 5th, and I'm in another district on the 6th. But I can talk, we can figure this out in the sense that if I can come back to you personally, I will do it.
Okay.
If I cannot, we'll figure out a different way to do it. I even have capability of video conferencing if you wish, but that's not I don't like that as well either. Phone's fine. But whatever works best for you as a group. So it's my understanding that as a group of 7, you prefer to do it this way.
Sure.
Yeah, the only question I have too, that, and I completely agree with Cheryl, that it needs to absolutely be available to everyone who's interested. But I think we had a short discussion at that last meeting, and my concern with the internal candidate is that, at this late date, I think, and I don't know if anybody's received information. Karen Beverly, I know you sent out the list to the board, of potential people that were within the district. But I don't know if we are truly interested in having an internal candidate, then we should probably be seeking that person, asking them if they are willing to come forward. I think we know everything we need to know. This is not like somebody who's applying to the position. I understand we want to open it, right? But my suggestion last time was that, if there's somebody that we've identified, we as a board, we could have somebody, Karen Beverly, or somebody approach the individual and say, the board, has considered this. And would we consider going into closed session to have that conversation? Because then
That's right.
we might not need the interim candidate search if
That's right.
is successful.
That is true.
So why wouldn't we do that first?
That's your call. That is this board's call. And know that if you approve us this evening, it's morning, isn't it still? If you approve us today to do the interim piece, and then that occurs, and you do it from your internal people only, there will not be a cost. We'll take it off. Because we won't have done any. All I've done is gotten in names of people and their stuff that we from our own internal list. So no issue. And if you do that, you're not going to have probably community stakeholder staff groups. You're just going to negotiate something with somebody you desire. Now, along that line, 2 things come to mind. One, I'd make it absolutely certainly sure that the internal person really wants to do it. Okay, that's big. Secondly, these candidates that I have in my bag, the information of, don't have any expectations of this moving along within a week. I told them I would get back to them only if they're being asked to come to interview with you. So they don't have any unrealistic expectations of being fulfilled. So I guess what I'm saying to you and offering, we can even add it to the agreement on the interim piece by writing in, if you do something internally within a certain length of time, and I suggest to you that happen within days, by Tuesday, because you've put that out as an open internal, and you make it so that you contact them and ask about it. In fact, if you just need to go to them and find out. They have to be qualified or licensed, and we'll negate that particular part. The 20% comes off the other search. It would go back to the full price because we have to work it that way. Not a huge deal, but
It was about 1,700. Is that what the discount was?
it was 20% of 1,680. 1,680, I think. 20% of 890, 8,900.
So if, and I guess the first.
Or no, 1,780.
Yeah, almost $1,800. So instead of spending $3,500, you save $3,500, but we'd have to pay an extra $1,700. So
Right.
it's about half.
That's it.
And so, well, I don't know how you want to proceed. My thought was first, maybe we need to discuss if we want to do that route, if the board's comfortable personally contacting the 6 people, I think, that are qualified. And then if so, then we need to talk about timing with him.
Right.
Could we have time to contact them? If we give you the list, could you do?
I can. Yeah, and I would do that without issue.
And can you
okay.
speak to your experience, what you've seen using internal versus external candidates
Sure.
for the interim position?
Right. We have seen districts that have issues and disruptions going on that have benefited from an external interim coming in because they will be peacemakers and can settle the waters. It depends on who it is, and it would depend on who it is internally. But often an external person can come in, like I'm doing today, tell you the truth, the whole truth, without any doubt and then go home without fear. Follow? You know, the interims are a unique bunch in the sense that you're going to find them to be independent. I even asked all of these if they're okay if they interview with a focus group of staff and community, because that's not typical of interim interviews. And they said, sure. I'm glad to know they did. But I think you have possible more success from an external interim than you do an internal. I only say that from what I've seen occur. We haven't seen as many internal interims because that's going to leave a hole someplace else for you too. And that's a challenge. And do they really want to do this? And they can apply for the full, of course. Back to that, we almost went to there. We prefer to have internal candidates in the full search invited to apply or do apply, and then we weigh them against the entire pool on its own without like a courtesy interview or any other piece, because we can come to you then and tell you that yes, they match up with the entire pool. If an internal candidate is successful, some in the community may say, well, if you knew that, you shouldn't have had the full search and paid for that. But the challenge is this: they've applied now if they're successful internally against the world, and it validates their selection.
You want to discuss what our preferences are? I mean, my preference, I guess, would be to look at all the candidates together next week or whenever we can do that after the interim internal posting has closed. What do other people think?
And I would suggest have Tom reach out individually to our
Okay.
internal candidates.
I simply
See if they're
need information, or two ways, maybe do it both ways. Give me a list of who they are and their current roles and their contact information. And then also you can put out another announcement quickly, and even if you needed to keep the opening beyond Tuesday, we could extend it a little bit and have them contact me directly if they are interested. But both ways, okay?
Okay.
Can we alternate is the post that went out a couple days ago or yesterday, is it for internal candidates only?
Yes.
Okay, can that be edited to have you as the contact person?
Sure.
After it's posted, that's okay to do?
Mm-hmm. And I would prefer to have my cell number listed as the contact, because that's with me all the time. It's on a card that you have in your folders.
So are we okay doing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tom, it's okay to do that on Monday and change that information?
It is.
Without-
It's always better, sooner the better, but you maybe, can you do it today?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where the person that does that is.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I would say this: if you need to wait till Monday, then let's delay the closing till Wednesday. But if you can do it sooner, then it can stay Tuesday. Does that make sense?
Everyone good with that? Delaying the posting till Wednesday if we can't change it till Monday, but other.
Closing, you mean the closing?
The closing.
deadline.
I'm sorry.
Right.
And if not, if we can change it today, we'll leave the deadline for Tuesday? Is that what you said?
That's what I said.
Okay. Is everybody good with that?
But my question is this: have you identified everyone who is qualified?
Yes.
And you have those?
Yes.
Okay, they're gonna hear, if I have that information,
can I give out personal information on people who have not applied? I would not want my personal information given out.
That's a good question.
So
Can-
that would be an issue that I would have to check as well.
that's true, that's true.
Yeah, that's why I just,
You emailed them maybe. Sorry, go ahead.
that's why I thought maybe perhaps we as a board, if we had a discussion, which we have not had, about internal candidates in closed session, then if we had identified individuals that we were willing to go forward, it still seems like it's an application process. Where what I'm saying is, I'm not sure, I can't speak for anyone, but I don't know if people are going to just generally apply from their current position just to be thrown into a pool. What I'm saying is if there is any desire from board members to have an internal candidate, you'd have that discussion, and then we could bring those, have a conversation. Maybe that's somebody from within the district that would contact that person. The board's discussed, your name was brought up, would you be interested? That kind of approach, because otherwise we're just throwing it out there and, hey, you could apply, the board may look at you. I don't think that's going to yield a lot of success.
That's possible, but a different solution, maybe, two solutions. One, someone internally makes contact to them and it says, are you going to apply? If we're engaged to do this by you as a board, we are now an agent of yours. And if we have information, if I know the names of individuals in their building, for example, I can call the school and get them. And that's not violating their confidentiality as far as personal. I don't want their, you know. So whatever works for you. I'll sort through and work with you as to your best choice. If the issue is to decide in a broad way to consider internal candidates, it's going to take a little more time. And that again is a group of seven's decision here. But there's nothing wrong with letting these run together either, because timing is important to you. So I don't mind making contact to individuals who are identified, or them me. Now, there's another option in the sense that you could communicate them, someone on staff could communicate with them quickly and give them my contact information, whether both email and cell phone, and say, if you're interested in applying, call Tom by Tuesday. That's really fine.
Is
'Cause
everybody
that's really
okay
kind of
with
what's
that?
going on right now, except that I'm not the contact, and if I'm now the contact, please do so. Please do
Cheryl,
so.
Teresa, are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine. I think you've addressed the privacy issue and we've worked through that, and then still have the opportunity for you to get the information and be involved at that critical.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I would have the names of those who are actually applying to this, and what I'll ask of them to submit to us is the same information we do as interim candidates. It's a personal information form, single page. It's kind of a brief resume, but then they submit their resume fully and recommendations. Proof of licensure, we need that. And all that you will know because you have a file of each of those now and you know what's in it probably. So that could resolve. If they know of me, they can contact here. Now, if I've not heard from anyone within a certain length of time, I should communicate with you all and say that. I'll tell you what I do need from you then, if we move forward, two things. You can approve us to do both pieces. If we find someone internally and you're there, the interim one drops off. We'll discount that. We won't. And we'll adjust the other. Fine. If not, we move forward with both.
So
I
we
lost
need
my train of thought.
That's okay. Do we need to add a little phrase on
Sure.
it? Okay.
Yeah, I'll write it on there.
Okay.
And you can make that in your motion too, and then I'll write it on, initial it. We'll make sure that it's known.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Leahy?
Oh, I know, was gonna say one
Yes.
piece, sorry. I need someone, perhaps, your first name again? Renata. Renata, if you would email to me, send to the board, all board members, you usually do that, and copy me, and I'll include Renata on all communications as well. So you'll have 8 people plus me, and then I will send back a test email from me that you would individually respond to. That makes sure I have what I need to get to you. Does that make sense?
That sounds great.
All right.
Okay.
And so the other piece of our to-do list is to change the job announcement, and we'll extend it.
We're extending it if we cannot post it, make the change today, correct?
That was the discussion.
Okay.
I have it ready to go as soon as I get the phone number to put on that.
Okay.
And we'll
You
change
mean
the
mine?
contact information on that? or-
That's what she's gonna, yeah,
Yeah.
they're gonna change the contact
and the
information.
date. Okay.
And the date will be changed if we can't do it today.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just have, are you going to move into the motion?
I was going to.
Okay, I have one last comment then before we move into the motion. You know, we've heard from dozens of community members, parents, teachers. And I know I've talked to a few board members in the last couple of days since the last meeting. And I know this has been a major disruption to our district. You know, this is a divided board, and we have done some major decisions on a 4-3, and you heard me before ask that we as a board work harder together to not allow that to happen. People were not willing to commit to that, but hopefully you will try to work to that even though you were unwilling to make that commitment. There is a petition going around, and like I say, I spoke to board members in the last couple of days, some of you. Is there any ability for this board to work together to resolve some of this disruption to our district by somebody, one, perhaps two people, agreeing that this has been a major disruption and that the quickest way to put this to rest somewhat would be to allow Dr. Parker to stay on to the end of the year.
I'd like to echo that sentiment. I know it's a stretch that could be a possibility, and it's disappointing, as I've said, to terminate, not terminate, but to have this agreement midterm. There's just not justification for all this turmoil and upheaval, you know, and we've had people speak so eloquently about, this is about the kids. This is about education. And this decision, how in December does that support the best interests for our kids and the district? I know. I understand that there was a 4-3 vote to have a mutual separation. And I think we need to discuss about whether we can just move the date that happens so that we have a smooth transition. I mean, if that's what the majority wants, then the board will do what it's going to do. It's a consensus. But we wouldn't have to be spending this money, $3,500. We wouldn't have to be paying $75,000 in additional salary to have an interim, not including the details that we might have to do housing or transportation. He gave us a range, and I did right in the middle, and that's $75,000, you guys. Plus, we have to pay for a search. Plus, we're less than a month away. And so then an interim is great because it's a Band-Aid, I guess, but a Band-Aid on what? When the public loses our confidence, then the teachers' morale goes down. And when the teachers' morale goes down, as I heard at an ISB seminar just last week about when there's dysfunction on a board, when teacher morale goes down, then student achievement goes down. And you guys, I mean, I know that this is definitely an emotional issue for you guys. You know, she's your leader. She turned this district around 180, and student performance continues to go up. It all feeds into itself, and there's studies on this about how this impacts student performance. But I'm doing the math now too, and we're already paying her essentially through the rest of her contract. But now, by this decision needing to be December 31st, we're going to spend $93,000 more. Well, or let's just keep it simple, $75,000 more. Isn't there one person that wouldn't want to save that money and save the disruption?
I think there's a value, I think we missed the opportunity for the value of having an external interim come in who's unbiased and who doesn't have alliances and be able to.
What does that answer the question?
But I think we need to address what I just raised, not that.
What is? Well,
that we can stop this disruption now just until the end of the year. I'm not even asking someone to change on whether you would like the separation or not.
Right,
I'm not asking to keep her.
So that was the
permanently.
agreement already. So you're saying renegotiate the mutual separation agreement. I am not willing to.
I have a comment here, and I'm going to echo Dawn. I'm going to echo Cheryl. They're so eloquent in how they speak. But this is, you know, I must commend Dr. Parker for her leadership going through the past 2 weeks. She continues to support everyone in this district. She continues to answer our emails timely. And I completely echo that let's let this just, it's too much disruption right now. My goodness, we are on the news every day. We are in the paper every day. And I read the comments that are in there. This board, I'm very embarrassed. I'll echo from Cheryl's last meeting. I'm very embarrassed by this. I can't, I walk the hallways at work. I go to out in the public, just as I believe it was Mrs. Lozier, Nicole indicated. When you go out in public and you are embarrassed whether or not you're going to wear your Dunlap attire, that's a problem. And once again, if we could work as a board to reduce the amount of disruption, this is for our students. We've had students speak here today. My daughter from college, my kids from college send me comments about the students, and the students need to get involved. We are role models, not just for everyone, but our students. We're role models. And I don't feel that we're acting in the way that we should. So that's my comment.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
Can we hear from some of the other board members?
Yeah, our attorney, I followed the advice of the attorney. Lisa had an attorney. We entered into a mutual separation agreement that both parties agreed to, and I don't have any other comment.
That's convenient.
Okay, anybody else have comments? If not, I will ask for a motion to approve the Illinois Association of School Boards to conduct an interim search and a permanent superintendent search, with the caveat that if we do not use the, if we have an internal candidate, that will be discounted.
Right.
Is there a motion to approve?
You need to resign.
I move to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Brian Zowen to approve the Illinois Association of School Boards to conduct an interim superintendent search and a permanent superintendent search. It's been seconded by Beth Ree. Is there discussion?
Shameful.
I just want to say in discussion that it's sad that we're here right now, but if the board is not willing to work together to do what was in the best interest of the district and to move along in a way that was at least less disruptive than what we're doing now, which I think you all know that all along that was part of this, and somehow that got changed. So we'll get to that. But I did recommend, and I do support IASB if anybody's going to do this process, because that's the only organization that I know myself comes here without a personal agenda. So I do appreciate you coming and speaking to us and hoping that you can help what you see here is a problem.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Bozeman. Aye. Disharum.
Aye.
Posthauser.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Reed. Aye. Zowen.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. And at this point, Tom, since we're not reviewing those candidates, we do not need to move to
No, right.
closed
Not
session.
with me.
Okay. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Sure. I'm sorry, who was that motion? Okay, it's been moved by Abby Humbles. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Brian Zowen. Move to adjourn. Is there discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. We are adjourned.